Okay, so we'll get started now with Worksheet 7. We're talking about principal parts this week. Okay, so just a reminder what I mean when I talk about principal parts. I'm talking about those critical forms of a verb that you just kind of have to know. So in English, we talk about the three principal parts: sing, sang, sung, eat, ate, eaten, bring, brought, brought, throw, threw, thrown. Or it can be something as simple as like walk, walked, and walked, right? They don't have to be exotic, right? Sometimes they're just ed for the second and third one, okay? But a lot of verbs are wonky, and in English we just kind of learn those weird forms as we encounter them. So principal parts in Latin are the same. There are 4 of them in Latin, and they just have to be memorized. That's just part of learning the verb. There's no pattern where you can just say, if the first principal part looks like this, now I know what all the other ones are going to look like. There's no one set pattern for them. We also talked about dividing verbs into conjugations, right, into the families that they belong to. So this chart right here, that's easy money on tomorrow's quiz, right? So if a verb has an ARE, a long ARE, it's first conjugation. Long ERE is second conjugation. Short ERE, you got to be careful because it could be regular third or it could be third IO. And to check to see if it's third IO, you want to look at the first principal part. So third conjugation is ago, agere, kano, kanere, duco, ducere, dico, dicere. Third IO is going to be, what's up, Chaz? Third IO is going to be facio, facere, copio, copere, anything that's got the IO. I know I'll be around tomorrow night. I'm going to do some RL. And then fourth conjugation is your long IRE. Okay. So when we're filling out principal parts or we're learning principal parts, I cannot stress this enough. In fact, I'm going to bold it and underline it. Use a dictionary. Okay. If you're learning new verbs, you can't just learn the first form and then just wing it for the rest of them. Okay. So I've given you the first principal part, which is the present form. The second principal part is the infinitive, right? To whatever. Third principal part is your past tense, right? So monstro means to show, right? To point out. So monstrare, I'm going to have to make these a little bit smaller, I think. Let's go 13. That should work. Monstro happens to be first conjugation. I only know that because I know the verb. The third principal part happens to be monstravi. And the fourth one is monstratus. So that's a first conjugation verb that follows the sort of normal first conjugation pattern. Not all first conjugation verbs do that, and not all verbs follow any kind of pattern at all. So we just kind of get lucky on this one. I know it's first conjugation because of this ARE. Right? So that is a classic first conjugation verb. Sum is irregular, right? So sum, esse, fui, and then the last principal part, which is kind of not really a fourth principal part, it's an irregular verb, but sometimes you'll see it filled in there, is futurus. And I put it in parentheses because it's not really a fourth principal part, it just kind of gets filled in to fill in the gap. This verb, of course, means to be. What conjugation is a verb like sum or a verb like possum? It doesn't fall into any conjugation. So we just call it irregular. And there are only a few of those. Video, right? That EO makes me think second conjugation. And when I look up that verb, it proves it. Video, videire. Oops, I keep doing that. Weedy is your past tense. And then visus is your participle. Video, of course, means to see. So conjugation, video, videire, long ERE, that's second. Eubeo, okay, that EO, again, is making me think maybe second. I look it up. Eubeire. The third principal part is usi, and the fourth principal part is usus. So it's a big jump from eubeo, eubere to usi, usus. So again, there's no one set pattern. Eubeo, that verb means to order. So I order eubeo, I ordered usi. So they're not very similar to one another. So again, hammering home this point that principal parts, you just got to know them. You can't predict them sometimes. Eubeo, eubere, that is second conjugation. Debeo, again, when I see that EO, makes me think maybe second, and again, I would be right. Debeo, debeire, debui, and debitus. And that verb means, among many things, to owe. So, of course, in English, if you think about owing somebody money, you are in that person's... I'll let you guys fill in the answer. And that is second conjugation. Do. Very, very important verb. Okay, the first principal part just ends in an O, so it's not really telling me much. It's not giving me much, so really got to make sure that you look this one up. And it is do dare. Dare is a weird verb because it's actually not a long A, but don't let that mess you up. Dedi and datus. Oops. Do dare dedi datus. This one is bread and butter kind of a verb. This is one we got to know. That's the verb to give. And because it's an ARE, it is a first conjugation. I know that A isn't long, but that's a sort of exception. Timeo with that EO, right? That's making me think second. So timeo, timere, timui. And most verbs are not going to put a fourth, or most dictionaries are not going to put a fourth principal part. Sometimes they'll fill this in, timitus, but again, I'm putting in the parentheses because sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. Timeo means to be afraid of something. I have to shrink that down a little bit. So if you are afraid of snakes or afraid of bears or afraid of heights, you would use this verb timeo. Okay. Principal parts, classic. And this is timeo, timere, so that is second conjugation. Possum, don't let this verb fool you. It is sum, so it is irregular. So possum, possa, potui. And it does not have a fourth principal part. So again, sometimes there just isn't a fourth one. And this verb means to be able. And I put the to in parentheses because typically you're going to have an infinitive hanging out nearby. It doesn't fit into one of the categories, so it is simply irregular. Amo, you don't know amo, you slept through 7th grade. Come on now. Amo, amare, amawi, amatus. To love. Probably the first, or one of the first verbs that you learned. Definitely one of the first conjugation verbs that you learned. And it does follow that first conjugation pattern, right? Ferio, so when I have an IO, that makes me think it's going to be third IO or fourth, because they both have the IO. And when I look it up, it turns out to be ferio, ferire, feriwi, feritus. And that verb means to strike, as in to hit someone with something. Ferio, ferire, long IRE, that is our fourth conjugation. Now remember I said use a dictionary for this, okay? My dictionary, for at least for these verbs, is in my brain, right? I've learned these verbs, I know their principal parts. But I'm not pulling these from just random guesses, right? This is knowledge that I have in my brain. So that's why I told you on this section, use a dictionary. Don't just look at it and say, let me make an educated guess. The directions, which I know every student reads all the time, say use a dictionary, and that's what I want you to do, okay? Ago, just an O is not really telling me much, okay? It's telling me that it's probably not second. It's definitely not second. It's definitely not fourth. It's definitely not third IO. It happens to be third. Ago, agara, has some funky principal parts. Egi is your past tense, and then actus is your participle. Ago, agara, egi, actus. This is the verb to do. And I know that you learned it last year as do or drive. It can sometimes mean drive, but you're not often going to be driving, so it's much more likely that it's some verb of doing. I would put that one in my brain before I would put drive. And this is a third conjugation verb. When I see capio, right, that IO, I'm thinking third IO or fourth. It's going to be one of those two, most likely. And it turns out to be capio, capere, capi, and captus. So capio, capere, capi, captus. This is the verb to grab, to seize, to capture. Has a lot of different meanings. Make an educated guess, then check with a dictionary can help you or not be over-reliant on a dictionary. Yeah, I mean, more often than not, right, you have the principal part. You're reading a sentence and you're working the other way, right? It's very rare that you need to produce the principal parts. It's much more important to recognize the principal parts. But if you are trying to use that verb and you need to get the past tense or you need to get the perfect stem or whatever the case may be, just don't make them up, right? Use a resource, use a dictionary if you don't know it. It's fine if you don't know it, but don't try to make it up. Capio, capere, that is third IO. And I always go to Tolo, and Giancarlo, you're in the chat, so give us the principal parts of Tolo. See if you got these memorized. I always go to this verb because it's so weird. You remember him? I hear you frantically typing on Whitaker's words. Yeah, it's Tolo, Tolera. We got the first two. Drum roll. Nice. Yeah, one S, or one L rather. Sustuli and sublatus. And that verb means to lift. Right? So look at those principal parts. Tolo, tolera, sustuli, sublatus. It's kind of a funky verb. So sometimes the principal parts really, it's like tuli and latus, right, from Pharaoh. So it's kind of a mixed verb. And it is, of course, third conjugation because tolo, tolera, ere, short ere. Right? So those are our principal parts, right? Just want to get you guys in the habit of seeing that they're not always going to follow a pattern. That's okay. And we should be able to identify what conjugation they belong to by using this form and then also checking on this form. So it's really the first and second principal parts that are going to tell me what conjugation. Okay. Down here we've got some noun adjective pairs for practice because that's going to be something I ask you guys to do tomorrow, and also because these are skills, right? It's like free throws. Even the professionals, they got to shoot their 1,000 free throws, to practice or whatever they do. So you never want to get out of practice with this stuff. My rule for noun adjective pairs, start with the noun. Always, always, always start with the noun. So you look at the noun, it is donum, doni, neuter. So that is going to be second declension. Donum, doni, dono, donum, dono. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit more. Yeah, not that much. That should do it. When we go to the plural, because, don't you autocorrect on me. When you go to the plural, because this is a neuter word, you got to be careful because neuter plurals are ending in A, right? So dona for the nominative, dona for the accusative as well. And then the others are your standard donorum, donis, donis. So second declension, neuter words. We have I, o, o, a, orum, isa, is. When you're dealing with the adjective, the first thing you must ask yourself is which of these three forms do I use? Me us, me me So you have to know what those three forms represent. Masculine, feminine, neuter. Since donum is neuter, we use me Meum is second neuter. And the noun is second neuter. So they shall live together in perfect harmony using the exact same endings, and life is good. It's a taco pequeño. Me orum, me is, me is. Okay? Meum donum, me idoni, meo dono, meum donum, meo dono, mea dona, right? They all have the same endings. And sometimes that happens, and that's fine. Second pair is a new sailor. So let's start with the noun, sailor. Nauta, nautai, that's first declension. So we can power through that. Nauta, nautai, nautai, nautam, nauta, nautai, nautarum. Yeah, no worries. You guys take off. Normally I'd be recording earlier than this, but unfortunately we had well, I won't say unfortunately, but had to change my schedule up a little bit. Nautai, nautarum, nautis, nautas, nautis. And the adjective, nowus, noa, nowum, masculine, feminine, or neuter, because nauta is masculine, I need to use nowus. Now, nowus by definition, by its form, is a second declension word. So even though the noun is first declension, the adjective is going to be second declension. Nowus, nowi, nowo, nowum, nowo, nowi, masculine plural, noworum, novis, nowos, nois. Okay? So the noun is first declension, the adjective is second declension. That's fine. They live together. Taco grande. Oops. Scroll down here to large sign. So we're going to go a little bit faster on this one. Sign is second neuter, just like gift was. So signum, signi, signo, signum, signo, signa, signorum, signis, signa, signis. And a couple people have told me, hey, can you slow down? When you're watching live, it's a little bit trickier, just because I want to keep the videos to a certain time length. But if you're watching this in a recording, there's a really easy way for me to slow down. It's called the pause button. So when you're watching this, if you're like, whoa, 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 I can't write that fast, just click pause and write them down, and then you start it up again. Magnus, magna, magnum, because this is a neuter word, I'm going to use magnum, which happens to be second neuter. My noun is second neuter. They live in perfect harmony. Magnum, magni, magno, magnum, magno. Surprised that didn't autocorrect me to mango, but magna. Let's see if I do it without the long mark. Will it do it? No, it knows. Magna, magnorum, magnis, magna, and magnis. Sweet. Large, wide road rather. That's a wea. That's first declension. Wea, weai, weai, weam, wea, weai, wearum, weis, weas, weis. And because road is feminine, we're going to describe it as lata. Lata is first declension. lata, latai, latai, latam, lata, latai, latarum, latis, latas, latis. Okay. First declension noun, first declension adjective, everything works out. Easy money. Okay. And that brings us to the last one, which it turns out is also a first declension noun that happens to be feminine. So I gave you two easy ones at the end. Scola, scolae, scolae, scolam, scola, scolae, scolarum, scolis, scholas, scolis. And my adjective is primus, prima, primum. Since school is feminine, I pick prima, which I'm going to, prima, primi, primi, primum, prima, primi, primarum, primis, primas, primis. Okay. Now, what this worksheet doesn't really get into is the first and second conjugation stuff, where you're actually conjugating verbs. That's more tomorrow's worksheet. So if you want extra help on that, if you're watching this on Wednesday, which I hope that you are, I'll be in office hours today from 1:20 to 2:15. I'll be in office hours tomorrow, and you can always shoot me an email. Okay? But I'm going to cut this video here. If you have any questions about anything, just pop into the Discord, and I'll be happy to help you out. Thanks for coming.